Welcome to our channel where we explore the fascinating world of AI-generated stories. Today, we have a spine-tingling tale for you. A story about a group of friends who went to stay at an Airbnb and encountered something they never expected. So, sit back, relax, and let the story begin. It was a beautiful day when 5 friends, Maria, David, Sarah, John, and Emily, decided to rent an Airbnb in the countryside. They were all excited to spend the weekend together, away from the hustle and bustle of the city. The Airbnb was a beautiful farmhouse surrounded by lush green fields. The host, an elderly lady named Mrs. Granger, welcomed them warmly and showed them around. As night fell, the friends sat around a bonfire, roasting marshmallows and chatting. Suddenly, they heard strange noises coming from the fields. It sounded like something was moving in the bushes. The friends brushed it off, thinking it was just an animal, but the noises continued throughout the night. The next morning, the friends woke up to find strange symbols etched on the walls of their bedroom. They couldn't make sense of what the symbols meant, but it gave them an uneasy feeling. When they asked Mrs. Granger about it, she seemed oblivious and told them it must have been a prank played by some mischievous teenagers. As the day went on, strange things started happening. Doors would slam shut on their own. Windows would open and close without any wind, and the lights would flicker. The friends started to feel like they were being watched. They decided to cut their trip short and leave the Airbnb. But as they packed their bags and got ready to leave, they heard a voice whispering in their ears. It was a voice they had never heard before, a voice that sounded like it came from another world. The voice whispered, "You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave." The friends ran out of the Airbnb as fast as they could, leaving their belongings behind. As they got into their car and drove away, they could hear laughter coming from the farmhouse. They never looked back. A few weeks later, Maria saw an article in the local newspaper about Mrs. Granger. The article stated that Mrs. Granger had been arrested for practicing witchcraft and performing dark rituals in her farmhouse. It was rumored that she had been summoning evil spirits and sacrificing animals in the name of the devil. Maria immediately called her friends and told them about the article. They were all shocked and scared. They couldn't believe that they had stayed in a place where dark rituals had taken place. They decided to investigate further. The friends returned to the farmhouse, determined to uncover the truth. As they approached the farmhouse, they saw that it was deserted. They entered the farmhouse cautiously, looking for any clues. They found a secret room hidden behind a bookcase, and inside the room, they found a book of spells and potions. As they were looking through the book, they heard a creaking sound coming from the floorboards. Suddenly, the floor gave way, and they fell into a dark, damp, and creepy cellar. The cellar was filled with strange objects, skulls, and bones. They realized that they had stumbled upon Mrs. Granger's dark ritual chamber. Suddenly, they heard footsteps approaching. They tried to run, but they were too late. They were trapped. Mrs. Granger appeared before them, wearing a long black robe and holding a dagger in her hand. She smiled wickedly and said, "Welcome, my darlings. I've just realized that there was a mistake in my previous message, and the last sentence was not complete. I apologize for that. Here's the continuation of the story." She smiled wickedly and said, "Welcome, my darlings. I see you have found my little secret chamber. You should have left well enough alone." The friends were terrified. They didn't know what Mrs. Granger was capable of. Suddenly, Mrs. Granger started chanting in a language they didn't understand. The candles flickered, and the room filled with a strange, smoky haze. The friends felt like they were being pulled into another dimension. As the chanting continued, the friends saw ghostly figures materialize in front of them. They were the spirits of the animals that Mrs. Granger had sacrificed in her dark rituals. The spirits were angry and vengeful, and they started attacking the friends. The friends tried to fight back, but they were no match for the spirits. Suddenly, a bright light appeared, and a figure appeared in the center of the room. It was an AI-powered robot, holding a glowing sword. The robot started fighting the spirits, and with every swing of its sword, the spirits disappeared. Mrs. Granger was shocked. She didn't expect the friends to have an AI-powered robot with them. The robot turned to face Mrs. Granger and said, "Your evil deeds have come to an end, Mrs. Granger. You will pay for your crimes." Mrs. Granger tried to run, but the robot caught her and held her captive. The friends called the police, and Mrs. Granger was arrested for her crimes. The friends were shaken but relieved that they had put an end to Mrs. Granger's dark rituals. And that's the end of our spine-tingling tale. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing to our channel for more AI-generated stories. And remember, if you're ever thinking of staying at an Airbnb, make sure to do your research. Thanks for watching.